The man spreads a large amount of fine sand at the end of his bed every night, then tapes the door tightly. In the end, he chains his feet with iron chains, because he finds himself sleepwalking every night. But even so, Stephen still awakes the next day in a grassy field, and he feels pain all over his body. In front of his eyes is a strange village. Even stranger, there is a man's voice in his ear, constantly guiding him. Following the guidance, he finds a golden scarab in his pocket. He suddenly feels something behind him, yet turns around only to see a man high above the castle. Then, another man with a shotgun starts shooting towards him without a second thought. But, well, they are very poor shots. Soon, Stephen escapes to a village. He puts on a hat to blend in with the crowd. Soon, their eyes all look in one direction, and a man appears, to whom the people are respectful. He opens a ceremony of judgment, placing a cane in a man's hand, which then begins to sway like a scale, and so does the scale tattoo on his arm, which then fades to green, which means the man is a good person. However, when the next old woman comes on stage, the man's tattoo turns red, even though the old woman says that she has never done anything bad in her life. But
the scales see everything. Perhaps it's something that lies ahead.
the man just gently shakes her hands. The old woman's body turns black and collapses to the ground. A man with a gun tells him that Stephen is mixed up in the crowd, so he shouts a spell, and everyone drops to one knee, except for Stephen, who is slow to react, so he is recognized. The man tells him to hand over the scarab, but just as he is about to give it to him, the man's voice rings in his ears once again, and his hand clenches involuntarily. He cannot open it whatever.
Take it. That's so strange, sorry about that.
The man thinks he is deliberately playing a trick on him. As hard as Stephen tries to give him the scarab, his legs start to run away from the place uncontrollably, but he is quickly caught. At this point, a man rushes out and snatches the scarab, and then Stephen begins to lose consciousness. When he becomes conscious again, his hands are covered in blood, and falling at his feet are the men who just caught him. Even the scarab is once again back in his hand. Seeing that they are closing in on him, Stephen panics and flees, and whenever he feels that the situation is critical, he begins to roll his eyes over and over. When he comes to his senses again, the pursuers are gone from around him, and he even grabs a pistol. Just when he thinks he is going to die, he suddenly awakes from his bed at home. Seeing that his feet are still tied up, he assumes that what has just happened is just a nightmare, but he suddenly realizes something wrong. The fish in the fish tank suddenly grows an extra fin.